Right now it is June 13th and it is 3:05 p.m. I'm making this video right now due to wanting to let the government know about what it is that is causing the human rights concerns to be raised all over the world. It's not me being harassed. There are a billion different false testimonies that could be made as an excuse for me being harassed. And to tell you the truth, I really don't even care about these things. The thing that is really raising all the human rights concerns, the reason all the countries are involved, is because the government looks incredibly guilty, inhibiting me from being able to study. It's a human right that every human being is born with, to be able to read and write. Even during the slavery era, was probably the only time when someone was inhibited from being able to read and write. The reason the government is looking incredibly guilty, and the reason the human rights concerns are being raised, is due to the fact that I'm being inhibited from studying. I can guarantee the government that if I'm allowed to study with all my brain savant powers, like these, fully locked up right now, on the night of April 22nd, these ears were right over there. These ears were over there. And right now, it's all locked up. Not only that, there's also air jogging being used. And even when I did use my brain savant powers for 6 hours on the flight on August 9, 2022, that was only the air jogging part being lowered. And these still being, in fact, they locked it up even more on that flight. And they were using energy weapon torture tools to hit my foot to threaten to break it so that I would not study anymore. Despite me not knowing about a brain scanner, I still studied for 6 hours on August 9th, 2022, because it was literally like an arm came out of my body. Excuse me. It was literally like another arm came out of my body and I had 3 arms instead of 2. It's something I had never experienced before in my life. All I want is for these human rights concerns to be removed, and it's very easy for the government to do that. They just can't look so guilty. And the reason the government is looking incredibly guilty right now is because I'm being inhibited from being able to study. You have to realize the fact that if I'm allowed to study for 30 minutes, law enforcement can win this trial without ever doing any work whatsoever. Law enforcement can win this trial in 30 minutes. Let me repeat that. Law enforcement can win this trial in 30 minutes just by letting me study for 30 minutes. And let me tell you how. If my brain savant powers are anything less than extraordinary, I'm not able to memorize textbooks like Kim Peek is, whom they call Rain Man. If it's anything less than extraordinary, lacking in any way, shape, or form, anything normal, law enforcement wins right away. Law enforcement tells the judge in the court, Your Honor, look at that. That guy knows how to memorize. I couldn't do that. My kids couldn't do that. My kids didn't go to college. They didn't know how to memorize. It's as simple as that. Law enforcement wins in 30 minutes just by proving to the courts that I am not extraordinary as I claim, but instead a nothing burger, which means that that entire theory of mine against law enforcement would be false. And law enforcement can immediately claim that they were running an investigation even though they weren't. The entire time, law enforcement since 2001 have been running sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws, followed later on by money fraud. In the year 2023, when law enforcement was trying to frame me for an incident that occurred at a wedding, I can guarantee the government listening that I would not be present at that wedding, nor could I afford to. I couldn't afford to go to that wedding, nor could I afford to be in the presence of anyone in the family who would even whisper to me in my ears about anything to do with any weddings, which means that I knew for a fact law enforcement was trying to frame me in 2023. But it was a very stupid move from law enforcement, since now law enforcement had told me about a crime or an incident that occurred at a wedding that law enforcement obviously covered over. And I know this for a fact since 2001, law enforcement has done absolutely no work except for run sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws, followed by money fraud, which clearly means that whatever happened at that wedding, law enforcement covered over it. And yeah, only to remember every single thing they possibly could as soon as finding out about my brain savant. Now, the thing about it is, law enforcement has done absolutely no work except for run sex schemes and money fraud the entire time. And when they would find someone doing something really incredibly dangerous, like my dad in 2011, whom I've only met about 3 times in my entire life, recruiting people for mass murder of innocent human beings, law enforcement would go and tip him off about it. Instead of sending someone in to find out exactly what he was doing, whether he was sending people to terror groups, doing something evil, how many people he was responsible for having killed through his insane sermons, since he would pretend to be some sort of a I've only met him 3 times. It was almost like he was pretending to be some sort of a guy who could get people's prayers answered and something of that sort of nature. Yeah, and he has followers. He's like the guy. They used so many drugs on me. I forgot his name. The guy who made everyone drink the Kool-Aid. He's made a lot of people drink his Kool-Aid, to the point that in the 7th grade he had people in Maryland call my mother and ask her if they could take me over to the mosque because they thought that my dad had some sort of special powers to get their prayers answered. And my mother was just like, don't ever call on this number ever again. I am not making this story up. If you go through the phone conversations, I don't mean to laugh. You will find this conversation in there. My mother's not like that at all. In fact, my mother, during the entire time we've been watched, never uttered one bad word against anyone of any race, religion, or faith background ever. That's the person I've been raised by. And that's the person I basically became. If you look at the brain scanner evidence from before July 1st, 2023, you will find that I loved everyone of every race, religion, ethnicity there was, whether they were Christian, Hindu, or Jewish descent. I would meet people who were Orthodox Jewish with big beards, same level of love and respect as anyone else. And the records and evidences will show that my mother was nothing like my dad. The aggressive, greedy framer, the man who's claiming to be someone who could get people's prayers answered. But on March 7th, he was trying to sending me porn stars pictures with his sister Fur, the greedy framer's name on it. Sunny Leone, porn star. You could ask law enforcement. He sent this through law enforcement. March 10 and afterwards, he has a 300-pound old sister named Afreen, and he was sending me sexually explicit pictures of a woman resembling her. And then this man who could get people's prayers answered was asking me on March 12th through law enforcement if I was willing to fulfill his sexual perversions by sleeping with his old, ugly, disgusting-looking wife. Yeah. So basically, these are the kinds of people that law enforcement is basically BFFs with. People like my dad, the greedy framer. Yeah, I would be nice to him, but he's not like... The only family I have is my mother and my sister. And my mother taught me and my sister to finish our schools, to the point that my sister got an MBA and a master's, and she's doing great in life. And I was able to get an overseas PharmD by sleeping on the side of the streets after going through months of very little food, tutoring people for food, and law enforcement should be witness to the fact that I would even have to steal food. And if law enforcement was there, they would know that when I would go to tutor people for food, I would actually steal food too. I would tutor pharmacology. And yeah, and I would call my mother and I would tell her, I'd be like, I had to steal food today. And my mother would just be like, she'd be like, don't pay too much mind to it. And I'd be like, I don't. Well, anyways, in the end, in order to get my overseas PharmD degree, I even had to sleep on the side of the streets near my overseas pharmacy school. Yeah, that's the kind of people me and my sister were raised to be. Yeah, So basically, yeah, my dad, the greedy framer, and all of law enforcement's BFFs, not exactly the kind of people we want to be around. Trust me when I say that. When I get my brain savant freed and I get all the money, I have my in-laws that I will find, and then except for that, it's just my mother and my sister getting the shares. And regardless of whether my dad, the greedy framer, offers this big fat ugly old sister of his, or that big fat ugly old sisters of his, or that you don't want to know looking wife of his on March 12th, he's not getting a penny, and I think he knows that. So that Bentley for Dad ad that he keeps sending me, there's no need, because it's not happening. The thing that I really was making this video about was to let the government know about the fact the only thing that's raising human rights concerns right now, the only thing, they can harass me, they can torture me, they could do whatever they want to me. It's not going to raise human rights concerns, because you could use November 20th as an excuse. Mid-January 2026, the child testifying 25 years later, all the lies that have been made and caught through the government informant, all the lies that were made, caught through the phone conversations retrieved. You can use a lot of excuses, make some more if you want. Yeah, it doesn't matter. There are a lot of excuses for harassing and torturing someone. Human rights would be raised only for a little while. You got to remember, there were a lot of human rights being raised, and after the November 14th Savant test result in Moscow, Russia, right near the Kremlin, I could see the 3 Golden Globes of the Kremlin from my hotel window, and I would send my mother a video of it every single morning, as I put on my YouTube already. And after the November 14th Savant test Savant test was done in Moscow, Russia, only because law enforcement were scared that they were looking like a bunch of cowards. They did what they always do, let my brain savant go for 1 minute so I couldn't perform with it. But in that 1 minute time period, they got a quick scan of my brain using a brain scanner, analyze it with an artificial intelligence machine in that 1 minute time period, quickly turned everything off. Ears were already off, by the way. They just lowered the ear drugging a little bit. And yeah, quickly turned everything off, ran away. Never to talk about any brain savants ever again. And when that results came out for November 14th, by the way, the law enforcement got a girl to hit my car in the back on December 10th, and they sent me Remitly money asking ads on December 10th. They did another one May 10th, and when the results for that one came out on June 7th, a girl from law enforcement started stroking my penis at nighttime. Literally 10 minutes after the report probably came out on the night of June 7th for the May the 10th. So when the Savant test was done on November 14th, you know, there were human rights concerns being raised. Obviously, people found out, and when I would watch those musical shows on Russian TV in Russia, because the challenge was obviously in Russia, these people wouldn't shut up. They kept saying over and over again, this and that, that and this. And one day in October, I was sitting there and I realized that these people have been losing all year. June 28th was my biggest victory, and after that, they tried to get me to give them illegal assurances of money, and considering the fact, the kind of low-life friends that they have in the family, I was just like, no, thank you, nor do I want to be your friend, and I'm not giving any illegal assurances for any money for anyone. And so in October, I was just sitting in my living room, and I thought I'd rub some salt on their wounds. And I told them straight out, I was like, look, when my brain savant gets freed, I want the Caesar machine. It's spelled CZUR. It converts textbooks into PDF. I'm going to buy an SD card. I already have a tablet, and I already have a laptop. It's going to be great because I'm going to start working on my ideas, and I already told them which ideas I had. I wanted to make coffee that has zero tolerance. So every single time you drink coffee, you get the same exact effect you got the very first time. It's definitely possible. And I know how to do it. I know the textbooks I need to memorize. They just won't let me do it. So the thing about it was, I was just brainstorming in my living room, due to which law enforcement then said, if you heard what he just said right now, you've just been scammed. And that was really embarrassing. while at the same time I knew exactly how cowardly these people were. They are all full of words and talks, but when it comes time to looking at reality straight in the eye for 30 minutes, just 30 minutes, look at reality straight in the eye by letting my brain savant go and let it perform for 30 minutes. That's it. For just 30 minutes, look at reality straight in the eye for 30 minutes. These cowards are nowhere to be found. They run away so fast you would think they were never there. Anyways, after they said that to me, and there were, like, if you just heard what he just said, you've just been scammed. I took them up on their challenge, and I told them I'll meet you in Moscow, Russia. So close to the Kremlin, I will find a place that I could see the 3 golden globes of the Kremlin every single morning I wake up. And I did. And these people were nowhere to be found, just as expected. And I would drink my coffee every single day with my tablet stand put upside down right near my window, drinking on that coffee, waiting for them to accept their own challenge any minute. For 25 days, I waited. And these cowards only did one little, less than a minute long savant test on the night of November 14, only to find out that what was there before was still there on the night of November 14, 2025. And after that, obviously, a lot of human rights concerns were raised in Russia. And whenever I'd watch those musical shows live in Russia, there was always that guy who was pointing his finger up and talking about Alexander Rybak because he knew I liked that song of his. I liked all Alexander Rybak songs, and he's Russian. And so basically, human rights concerns were raised until November 20th, when they made such a false testimony against me that it scared every single person on this planet. And I literally thought I was going to die in Russia. They used so much mental torture on me that I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die and no one would ever find out the truth. And the truth was I was only being tortured because on November 14th, law enforcement found out that my brain savant powers were still increasing over time. Basically, after July 1st, 2023, they never let me stare into a textbook out of fear that my brain savant powers were increasing because I would stare into a textbook for 4 years from October 2019 till July 1st, 2023. And so after July 1st, 2023, law enforcement never let me stare into a textbook. So they found out on November 14, 2025, that my brain savant powers were still increasing over time. So basically, my point is, there were human rights concerns raised after November 14, 2025, and they're raised in Russia. But guess what? After November 20th, 2025, those human rights concerns, they were nowhere to be found. Everyone was shut up. People didn't care what my history was or anything about it. My point being, human rights concerns cannot be raised over harassment, torture. There could be lies that could be made, exaggerations that could be made, things made look a lot different from how they are. There is a lot you can say about harassment, torture, and things of that sort of nature. But there's one thing you cannot say anything about, and history will remember this. I'm not being allowed to study. And since the slavery era of American history, everyone's been allowed to study. The reason this has raised so much concern from the ultra-rich in America is due to the fact that they were told about the fact that I'm being inhibited from being able to study only because of the fact that I have an autistic brain savant. And the ultra-rich were also told that all law enforcement did from 2001 is run sex games with people like Uncle Joey's in-laws and money fraud that are still going on till this very day. And these people were also told that law enforcement, if they would ever find anything bad, like the incident at the wedding, which they thankfully told me in 2023, they would cover it over, never to worry about a thing about it. The reason was their job was sex games and money fraud. They couldn't care less about anything else. The only reason law enforcement told me about their wedding incident in 2023 was because they were desperate. They had a huge court case on August 25th, 2023, and law enforcement was panicking. The other problem that they had was my brain savant was fully proven. You cannot deny 6 hours of brain savant data from August 9, 2022, which law enforcement did not release till May 2023. May 2023. 8 months later, they released it after claiming they were analyzing it. In that analyzation process, they only found what they knew they would found: a brain savant, giving me superhuman powers in innovation, photographic memory, and focusing. The ability to photographically memorize every single page of a textbook from morning till night, finishing textbooks like Iron Balls, Medicinal Chemistry in 1 day's time, and then innovating based on that. If you don't believe me, read the artificial intelligence reports from April 22nd, 2025, showing you exactly my brain savant's abilities to become superhuman even more than the already superhuman on August 9, 2022. So let me rephrase that a little bit so it could be better understood. August 9, 2022, I'm superhuman only because air drugging is Lord, and these ears are still locked. April 22nd, 2025, I'm superhuman even more than air drugging being Lord, only because these ears are removed and my brain from the inside, instead of being like this like now, it's like this. June 5th, 2025, proves that after I drink energy drinks and a little bit of caffeine, I can bypass all their torture tools to reach my savant state of mind, bypass all their energy weapon torture tools, which increases my powers even more. November 14, 2025, proves that my powers increase over time. Except for that, you also have a few weeks before April 22nd, 2025, proving innovation. August 9, 2025, for 6 hours proves focusing, meaning I don't have to take breaks. Like Daniel Tammet, he has to put his hand like this when he thinks. For 6 hours, I did not have to do that on August 9, 2022. Sorry. So basically, my point is just the fact that human rights are being raised. And the reason human rights are being raised is they're just drugging me a lot. I'm sorry. Give me one second.